Welcome to Fertility Village. This is your weekly live talk show where community and support come together. With rotating hosts, expert guests, and meaningful conversations, we're here to guide you through the highs and the lows of infertility. Whether you're searching for answers, seeking advice, or just looking for a special place to belong, Fertility Village is your space to connect, learn, and grow. Because it really does take a village, and we are here for you every step of the way. Thanks for joining.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We have Erin and we have Andrea Syrtash from Pregnantish, which is such an honor to have you on Fertility Village Live today. Thank you for joining and thank you for agreeing to be here. We know you're
of course
very, very busy, so we really, really appreciate it.
I'm happy to see you guys again now through the computer, but of course we've met in Canada before, and it's just good to see you again.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so we really, really wanted to get you on Fertility Village Live, but I think it was important to get you for an episode that is your bread and butter, your expertise, right? So I don't know if everybody knows what Pregnantish was born from, but it was created because not enough people were talking about infertility and its impact on sex and relationships. So basically, this is what our episode is about today. It's about navigating the emotional aspects of intimacy and your relationship during fertility struggles. And this is how Pregnantish was born. It's been about 10 years, I think.
Eight, just over 8. Yep.
Just over 8. And so, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing that you're here.
So exciting.
Yeah.
It's definitely a topic that does not get talked about enough. Like the relationship aspect, there's so much shame attached to it for people. I think there's so much like stigma for people to like admit that they're struggling. So I cannot wait to hear your story and how you got here to this place where you even like started a blog and have been literally featured everywhere. The View, Today's Show, like everywhere. And you just keep it so real. So yeah, this is going to be so good. I'm pumped.
I'm excited to be here. You know, I am a relationships author. So I just, when I launched Pregnantish, we were the first media platform in the category. And when we went live, people said, well, that's really niche. And I was like, guys, there's nothing niche about this topic. I know you guys know every time you tell someone what you've gone through or what you're going through, they pull you aside, they tell you a story, or their friend or their sister or their brother or whoever's going through it. So it's really good to talk about this, but relationships have been something I've written about for many years as an author, as an on-air expert. So this is a conversation I'm passionate about too. Yeah.
Okay, so we had a little bit of an introduction, but we really want to know who you are, Andrea. Like, who are you? How did this happen? Why did you start Pregnantish? What did you do before Pregnantish? What are you doing now? So if you can introduce yourself, well, not introduce yourself, everybody knows who you are, but you can give us a little introduction and just tell us how the heck you got started. We want to know.
Of course. So basically it started out of a bit of frustration because I was, as you said, I was on a lot of TV, kind of morning TV shows. I live in New York, but I even did the Canadian circuit of the shows, and I was constantly on air while I was undergoing pregnancy loss, infertility, IVF, navigating that. And I was, sharing relationship advice and sexual health insights. And I started to say to producers, you know what I want to talk about? I want to talk about when sex doesn't make baby, because that is a hard chapter of relationships. And first comes love, then marriage, then baby carriage is an outdated narrative. We have to tell this story. And everyone that I pitched it to, and I was like on these shows a lot back in the day on Good Morning America or whatever, I'd say, come on, let's do this. And a lot of times producers would say that's niche, or that's depressing, or we featured Dr. So-and-so during National Infertility Awareness Week, so we don't need to, we already covered it in April. And I was like, no, you don't understand. This is as much a relationship issue as a health journey and a medical issue. And how do you pick an egg or a sperm donor as a relationship issue, or how do you work with a surrogate IP relationship, which I had. I know Marissa, you know about that well. That's a relationship. How do you date and freeze your eggs? How do you, all of these are keep sex sexy. These are all relationship questions that you're going to face when you're building your family with the help of science and technology. So we went live kind of out of the frustration, but it was a blessing in disguise of being shot down with this topic time and time again. This was around 2016, 2015. And I just got so frustrated. I said, you know what? I'll create the media. If the media won't pick it up, I'll create. And we hired professional writers right away, professional video arm. It was really important to me to have premium quality content, because I felt strongly, and I still feel, that content and storytelling, what you guys are doing as well, storytelling is the pathway to get people the help they need, the support they need, the community they need. So there's, content in this category is a lifeline for some people. So when we went live, there was nothing like us. We made headline news. In fact, I was in the front of the Sunday Style and the Toronto Star Sunday section, whatever. This woman wants to break the taboo of infertility. That was in February 2017. So it's been a journey. And now there's a lot more awareness. I think we had a small part in that. I can't fully claim that, but we've reached over 1 billion people in 8 years, and we're out there. We're definitely out there. So it's been a joy. It's been really meaningful work, because the end of kind of that professional journey was as I went on live TV and I said, I'm infertile, which was very vulnerable to do back in 2017. And even now it would be, but then it was even a little less talked about. What happened after that really is how we found our audience, because it was amplified so much. And from there, Pregnantish really was born, but I still didn't have a baby. So the early audience of Pregnantish followed us when I didn't have a resolution. I didn't know how I'd become a parent. And I would say to the Pregnantish audience, I don't know the how, the when, the where, the why is this happening? But I was diagnosed at 14 with endometriosis. So I kind of knew why, but I knew the what, which was I will be a mom, I will be a parent. And I announced in all media, it's going to happen. Follow along. It's not about me, Pregnantish, but I'm part of it, and we'll see how I become a mom. And in year 8 of a bazillion treatments, I met my now 6-year-old through gestational surrogacy. So my egg, my husband's sperm, another uterus, which happened to be my first cousin Alana, who was my angel on earth, and that's kind of my professional, personal story meeting.
Wow. Amazing.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I think I can't imagine, right now, unless you're in the fertility community, it's still taboo, right? People don't really talk about it. So I can only imagine watching TV all these years ago, seeing you on TV and being seeing this this lady being like, I'm infertile. I can't even imagine people's reactions being like, what is happening right now? Why are we talking about this? How is she talking about this? But honestly, you said you played a tiny part. I honestly do believe that you paved the way for a lot of people who watched that and maybe said, hey, I'm infertile too. It's not just, I'm not alone. And she said it, why can't I talk about it, kind of thing,
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I wish I had seen it, because I was on my journey in 2017, and I'm like, where was I? Why wasn't I tuning in and watching Andrea? And I just want to give you props for speaking up while you were on your journey, because that is such a hard thing to do. I admittedly never could have done it. And we have a bunch of warriors in Oasis who are on their journeys who are part of our board or who are volunteering for organization and who are outspoken about their journey, Marissa being one of them. And I'm just always floored at the bravery and just what it takes to do that and to be out there with your journey. Like, I just have so much respect and so much, I don't know what to say, but I'm in awe and I'm amazed at the ability to do that, because I'm a total chicken. I couldn't do it. I'm the one that was
I would never have looked in thank you both, that's so sweet. But if you told me and I looked in a crystal ball, like, you will be broadcasting your infertility in this way, there's no way I would have been like, that's impossible. Because don't forget, I was hosting shows also about sex. That's much sexier than infertility.
Right.
I was hosting all these things that were like about love and sex and like, much easier topics, actually, to some vulnerable topics, but to me, kind of easier topics to talk about. Yeah. And I do want to share one quick story that I just remembered that we were talking. Actually, Pregnantish launched with a Facebook post that was set to private that people convinced me to make public, and that's when my life changed. So privately, I said, Happy New Year. It was January 2017. I said, I'm building something I've sorely needed. It's a place to help people navigate fertility and fertility treatments and infertility. And I don't want this to be taboo and in a message board filled with baby dust. Like, I want like good content on this platform. But in the article, the post, not the article, in the post, I kind of vulnerably shared, well, you've seen me on book tours and on air. What you haven't seen is behind the scenes. My drawers look like I'm a drug addict. My body is so black and blue and bruised, you could play checkers on it. But truly, my heart is the most bruised. And I just went raw, vulnerable, and I'm sharing this because I know I'm not alone, and some of you reading are going through this. And my last line said, so don't judge a Facebook by its cover. So I posted it. That was my, first post in January. And people started writing me. I got, like, just within my friend group, like, so many DMs. Oh my God, like, I need this. And what is this? And when is it going to launch? And what is it? And a few people said, can you set it to public? And I was like, oh, no. My Facebook's not public. Like, that's not. No, just try, set it to public. Start crying, press public. I share this because it's so hard at any point in this journey to share. And it's so normal to have that moment of like, I'm coming out of the closet. Mm-hmm. And so I pressed publish, and I went to bed and I was crying, and I woke up. When I tell you guys, it had been shared like 1,000 times. I got news requests. That's when we launched by accident. We weren't supposed to launch until April. It was January. My website looked crappy. Like, I was not ready. And that the Toronto Star and New York Magazine and Bravo, and I mean, it was crazy. Like, I got all these media requests because it went viral, and that's how we launched. So that's actually the true story of how we went live.
Well, so raw and so honest, right? And I think a lot of the times, not to bash social media, especially now, it's not accurate, right? It's very fake and everything looks great. And that's where a lot of people can go on social media and say, wow, like, I wish my life was like that, or like, look at these people, they look so happy. But in reality, it's not. So I like what you said, don't judge a Facebook by its cover, because you
That's
really
so good.
Pictures and smiles. Like, nobody's going to post a picture of themselves crying on Facebook, especially all those years ago, right? So your post probably knocked the socks off of a lot of people, and that's probably what made it so popular, right? Especially at that time. I think now it would be a little bit more
trendy,
a little bit more trendy, a little bit less taboo, like another person sharing their journey, which is great. But like all the way back then, like,
for sure,
that wasn't a thing, right? So
no, it was so taboo. And yeah, you're a pioneer, Andrea. I love that.
Yes, no, thank you. I appreciate it. That's no, listen, a lot has changed, and I often joke with the audience at Pregnantish, it's a great time to be infertile. I don't mean that, it's by PS, it's a terrible time to be infertile, but what I mean by that is there's more support than ever. What you ladies are doing is awesome. Like there's more community, there's more access than there used to be. There's more tech innovation and technology, improving. Even things like egg freezing wasn't where it was 10 years ago. So it's a better time now to navigate it than it used to be, but it's always a sucky time, just to be clear.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys know that.
Well, we're going to dive into the main discussion. It is February, the last Wednesday of February. This whole month has sort of been around like love and relationships. We had a sex therapist on earlier this month. In case anybody who's listening missed it, go back. Their episodes are all on YouTube. Shameless plug for the lives. They're all on YouTube. Go listen. They're all on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. They're on the Oasis Fertility podcast. So go check out. We have now 8 episodes up. But let's dive into talking about intimacy and fertility struggles. So we want to know, Andrea, how did infertility impact your relationship and your sense of intimacy?
Well, that was an interesting thing to navigate because I was the relationship expert, not always taking a page out of my books.
Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
Yeah, literally taking a page out of, I wrote a book called Cheat on Your Husband with Your Husband. And
genius title. Genius.
Thank you. I'm really into like puns, if you can't tell, with Pregnantish, and don't just cover, that's my thing. But basically what I really learned about navigating it with my husband was, and I give this advice a lot to our audience too, is not in year one, but as we went on the journey over time, I realized, wow, like we are different beings socially, and he's more private and I'm clearly more extroverted, and like what I might want to broadcast, he may not. And when I was in media early on in Pregnantish, he's a teacher. People would like stop him at school and be like, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. And it was hard for him. And so one big takeaway for me personally was, it's like we grieve differently, we process differently. Even during this process, we don't always want to share. And it's so important for couples to negotiate who and how to share, who to share with. I don't think we did that early on. So that was a big lesson for me. And then from there, I did take my own advice at one point. I remember booking these we're not in our ovulation window, we're not fertile, let's get a hotel room. Because actually Cheat on Your Husband with Your Husband has like a little do not disturb sign swinging. I love that. I did not design, that was designed by the publisher, but like it has that wink to the hotel. That I did embrace that advice, and we became tourists in our own city and in New York and got a hotel. And whenever we did that, that was to revive our relationship, which was, intimacy suffers during this. So like we went out of our way, probably not in year 1, year 2 or 3, to book these moments where we're not trying to conceive, we're not fertile right now, on purpose, we're gonna try to date each other, because like it's not going to happen now no matter what. We're not going to feel the pressure. So a lot of the advice I've shared through the years on Pregnantish came from my own, I think for all of us, like it's hard to give advice or support the community if you haven't had this pain point personally, because there's so many nuances, there's so many twists and turns, which is the ish of Pregnantish. Like nothing is I'm pregnant, ! Like that's not us, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone lives in the ish. And actually when I was pregnant with a gestational surrogate, I was Pregnantish too. So it really worked for that. But I just think if you've been through it, the personal and professional can cross, and that's actually a good thing, because then the community understands it, you understand.
There's nothing better, I feel, like being in a space where you have lived experience. It's one thing to talk about something when you don't have lived experience, but you've researched it and, you know, you've studied it. But when you have lived experience and you have pain behind it and suffering, or you know what it feels like, it just graduates to a whole different level, the sharing and how you go about it. So
I agree totally.
Yeah. Okay, I have a little bit of a interesting question, if you don't mind answering. So a lot of couples we find struggle with the shift from like fun intimacy to schedule intimacy, like you were saying, right? And so you were saying that you and your husband decided to date each other again. What would you say to other people who are experiencing the same kind of thing, where they're stuck in a rut, where they're like, okay, like I'm ovulating this day, we have to do it right now, and it's like a chore, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do it now, but this is the window, right? And so now their intimacy is all scheduled and it feels like a chore. What's, as a relationship expert, what is the advice? How would you help them navigate that, or what advice would you give them to navigate that and kind of like spice it up a little bit, you know, make it so that it's not so much work all the time?
Totally. And fair enough. Like there are times, which is awkward, you guys know, where your fertility specialist is like, have sex tonight. Like, that's super awkward. That's your homework, right? And that's always going to be fun. I do believe, though, first of all, give yourself a break. That it's not, even when you're not going through a grief chapter like this, like in a long-term relationship, sex is not always going to be fireworks and, you know, exciting. Like sometimes you're in work mode. You're like, I should do this. Like, so the first thing I want to say is give yourself a break. If sometimes it does feel like work, that's okay, and it won't last forever. But if you don't want it to always feel like work, I do think, like I said, carve out times when you're not fertile. Remember that not all of intimacy is sex. I mean, there are ways to connect with each other, flirt, date each other. That, you know, there's a chapter in my book called Chore Play. Like, there's so many ways to spice up a relationship. And novelty, actually, physiologically in our brains change when we fall in love and then when we are in love. So fall in love, that's when you're like, oh my God, everything is amazing. This person, we're so alike. You know, that, funny enough, that's like nature's way of getting us to make babies. They just don't infertiles, right? So that's like, oh, we're mirroring each other. Everything's so natural. And then you hit about 6 months. Well, after about a year and a half, 3 years, if you're really lucky, your brain actually changes and gets into a new state called attachment. And attachment is, you know, you're like, notice, you've said that joke a few too many times. You have morning breath.
You get the ick.
Like,
you know the ick? Have we watched that show with Adam Brody where she gets the ick?
That's a good one.
Oh, what is it called?
The Hot Rabbi.
Yeah.
Yes. And she gets the ick. I was like, oh my gosh, everybody knows what that means.
Everybody knows.
And you know, it's funny because like that's actually a more deeply intimate, the attachment stage is deeper than any intimacy you're going to have in the first few months. It's just you don't really, you're not like wanting to rip each other's clothes off as much as often, right? So how do you keep that alive? And I think it is important to date each other. So one of the greatest ways to game your brain is actually chapter 1 of the book, it's all coming back to me, was about chemical romance. It's like your brain chemistry impacts your romance. So novelty is the secret sauce to getting it on with your partner again. And that's why when you're on vacation, you're kind of like a little more open to things. To be your vacation self in general is a good idea. I always say that to singles, but I'd say that to long-term couples too. Pick a neighborhood, even if it's simple, like you don't have to be at a hotel, but pick a neighborhood or a restaurant, an area you just don't always fall back on and go to. Because couples get in these routines where they're like, I ordered on the menu at that place across the street. Well, in New York, it's across the street. Probably where you are, it's not across the street, but you know, It's like you just do the same things all the time. So if you mix that up a little, you're a tourist in your city, you just like take 2 hours and you do something novel with each other. That's a great way to re-spark some intimacy and have those conversations that you stopped having where you were curious about each other and you talked about more than like housework and bills and whatever else. So
Yeah.
And I have a follow-up question to that. The stigma that comes around, intimacy in relationships.
yeah.
I'm not an expert, you are. So I'm going to ask you this question and you can tell me your take on this. I feel as though society has this thought that everybody's all over each other all the time, no matter what, right? Like all the time, no matter what, it is what it is. It's always fun. And I feel like that's why there's a stigma to talk about it, because if you're not doing that, you're not normal, or your relationship must not be in a good place, or whatever, when life is just busy sometimes, right? It has nothing to do with any of those things. But what is your take on that?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think I wish more people were honest about those moments.
Yeah.
It's not, it would be weird if a couple was 7, I know you're soon celebrating 7 years of marriage, Marissa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would be super weird if at 7 years you're still exactly how you acted 7 weeks in, 7 months in. Like, it's not going to look like that. And good, that we'd be exhausted if it looked
Yeah.
I think that powerfully, vulnerably sharing your truth, as long as it's not like oversharing when it's not the right moment, I could see that being awkward. Mm-hmm. But it's generally appreciated. I mean, I would say the mom bloggers who are like doing really well are showing the messy living room and they're like, I've opened a bag of takeout for dinner. Like they're showing the truth of what busy life looks like. And they've amassed a lot of followers because of it. These people are yearning for just authenticity. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And in fact, if people look too picture perfect, I get a bit suspicious. I'm like, there's no way. There are studies to show that the more loud and kind of, the more people show off their wedding ring and their love for their partner, not that we can't occasionally do that, but there's people who every day are like, she's the best, he's the best, and they're all over each other. Those people have higher rates of divorce and breakup. Like there's actual studies on that.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I just watched a documentary, and somebody in that documentary, I don't know if anybody's watched the apple cider vinegar. No? Okay. Well, it's
so good.
It's good. It's not nice what the girl did in this thing. No. But basically a reporter said that the happiest people on social media, or the ones that look the shiniest, the ones that look perfect, those are the ones that have the biggest skeletons in their closet. Meaning like the secrets that they're not telling or stuff that they're hiding. And like that really resonated with me, because it's true. Like we live in this era where we don't know what's real and what's not. And even sometimes, for example, on TikTok, it's very popular when you're showing the messy and so now there's all these satire things because it gets views, right? A lot of people relate with it and think, oh my gosh, this is my life. But a lot of people are like, this can't be real. And so you have these two kind of categories of people that are like very interested in what this person is doing, because people just want to know that life is not this like cookie cutter perfect, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a weird thing to say, but in a strange way, I think the popularity of the Kardashians was that not only were they like perfectly contoured and made up, but they literally film them sometimes in the bathroom, like complaining about things, like hunched over when they're sick. I mean, not that, say what you will about them, but like seeing the glam and then seeing that, I think was part of their relatability in this weird way. So it's aspirational for the audience, which I think social media can be when things are like my perfect vacation. but it's also, oh yeah, they're stars. They're just like us. Oh, people on Instagram and TikTok, they're just like us. Like, I think that can be helpful. I do think sometimes people cry on camera or whatever for likes also. I'm just real talk, right? Like sometimes people go overboard and it doesn't register as authentic either. So just being you is just a good way to go in terms of, all of that.
Yeah. One thing we don't see a whole, I mean, I haven't, maybe I'm not on the right algorithms, but I don't see a whole lot of like couples and like people as a couple talking about this publicly. In most cases, it's the one partner talking about it, usually the femme. But I think it would be so good to hear people talking, like comparing relationship and talking about that. But there's just so much pressure, right? And I just like think back to my journey and how like so often we were just like picking each other up off the floor and like trying to be, because like one way or the other somebody's getting like experiencing the harder thing that month, or we had male factor, so it was like a lot of back and forth, like, okay, he is really suffering right now, and then I was really suffering at different points and different hard times throughout it. And I feel like I would love to hear your advice to couples on how to support each other, because I know I found like we would go almost revert back to like before we were dating sometimes, to like this, okay, we're just friends right now because we just like, I just need my best friend and you're the only one that gets it. You're the only one that knows what I'm going through. And so you hear two different stories of people that go through the fertility journey. I've heard so many relationships that fall apart because they can't be there for each other. It's too hard, or they're taking it, completely different ways. And so, yeah, I think it's so difficult on so many levels, the financial pressure, the sexual pressure, like just all of the different things for a couple to navigate together and then make it out on the other side of it. Like, it's just so much. So I'd love to hear how, you would advise couples to support each other. Again, like I went back to sort of the best friend, like if you were not my partner right now and you were just my best friend, what would I do? And just, anyways, give us your advice.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, one thing that, by the way, through the years at Pregnantish, we've done a lot of research on the relationship impact, and we have a lot of stories of couples growing stronger on the other side of, even if they're childless, not by choice. We've heard happy stories of how it strengthened through the vulnerability. One of my Andrea-isms, I have a lot of them because I've done a lot of media. My friend calls them Andrea-isms. I always say you can't have intimacy without vulnerability. So let's reframe what intimacy is. Intimacy is not just sex. Intimacy is vulnerability. Give yourself some points when you can be vulnerable together. But also, your partner may not be your support at every turn, even though he or she or they
totally
get it. It's so important to find your people. I've often suggested find your five, like that game show where you're like, who are your five that you can, when you're both grieving, you just have a way to look not for each other when maybe one of you can't pick the other up in that moment. That's helpful. There will be times when only you guys want to go through it, maybe with a therapist, maybe with a counselor, a priest, a rabbi, whatever it is, like, great. But I mean, I think that knowing who you can call when your partner and you are both just on the floor, so upset, and just hug each other, but know that you may not be able to like be that supportive for each other in the way they need.
Yeah, well, you're grieving together, like through the loss of, I mean, so many different things that's at different times,
Totally.
Yeah. I love that. Pick your five. And we really we are all about community. That is like what we preach to our, people who tune into the podcast or come to support group. Yes, absolutely. Find your five is such a good little, we're going to recycle that too. Because you need those people.
You'll see it everywhere.
We'll credit you.
Thing, like anyone who knows me is like, I've heard that 6,000 times. So
I love that.
It's so good. It's such a good thing to think about because it's kind of like overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. Like, who's my support? Find your community. I don't know who my community is. All of Instagram, all of whatever, or is it my people at my doctor's office, the receptionist? Like, who is it, right? And if you say find your 5, pick 5, even find your 3.
Yeah.
3 people that you know that you can go to, that you can text at any time if something's happening. That's not going to give you an at least da 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 da, or like, well, why don't you try this, or did you try that, right? Somebody that's just gonna sit with you in whatever you're going through.
Absolutely. And it may not be people, something I always qualify it with, it may not be the people you thought you'd pick, because you might have been like, oh, it would be clearly my best friend from college or whatever. That might be a bad support person for this chapter of your life. Like, you'll know based on all these buzzwords that drive you crazy. But it might be someone random. It might be, like you mentioned, it might be someone you met in the waiting room at the clinic. It might be a coach, a fertility coach. It could be so many things. So people. So also get out of the mindset, if you can, that like the people you imagined would be in your 5 or 3 are the right people.
Yeah, like I think that's a good, you just said like the person sitting next to me at a fertility clinic.
Yeah.
Never think that you're a bother, because the person next to you probably really wants to talk to you, but feels like they're going to bother you, and you really want to talk to them, but then you feel like you're going to bother them. And so like, just talk to people, try to make friends, talk to people there. I hate sitting in my fertility clinic for 6, 7, 8 hours. I usually just turn around and start talking to the people next to me. And there's always somebody to have a conversation with. Somebody always wants to talk, because you're just sitting there. You're either upset for something happening, or you've been waiting forever and you're exhausted. And just to have like somebody that knows what's going on, and have somebody friendly. And even though you don't know each other, it's kind of still like you know each other, right? Because you're in the same kind of place.
Yeah.
So for sure. We have a question on Instagram. I'm going to ask you, do you have a take on the traditional wife trend, and how this could impact how relationship dynamics are viewed in our culture, especially through the lens of infertility?
Okay. So just so I'm clear, the trend that's online about
the traditional wife trend.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, listen, we do not fit in that box ever, and let's own it. And let's actually, it's kind of boring to me, actually. Let's just embrace this experience. Leads to new discoveries in relationships, hilarious moments, as hard as that is to sometimes see. Like, we can all think of hilarious moments on this journey where we're like, really, doctor, you're talking about X? I mean, I just remember a doctor once doing a post-coital test after, like, he was like, go home and have sex, come back this many hours later. And he didn't see anything under his microscope. He was supposed to see sperm. And he's like, you sure you had sex? Yeah. Really? You sure? Like, you have these moments that are actually ridiculous. And I mean, you'll cry a lot too. But like, I think it's really important to say, I'm not traditional. I'm not building a baby in a traditional way. This is like modern family 3.0, and bring it. Like, it's good. Like, I have my people there. Like, this is not me. In fact, I don't know about you guys. Like, I do not relate still. I'm 6 years into motherhood. I do not relate to like mom pages that. No. I just am, like,
me neither.
Mom, right? Like, for me, the mom content would write itself. I've had. I used to even joke with my husband when I try to get my 2-year-old out the door. It was negotiating with a toddlerist. I was like, I should create a whole like blog about that. But it's like, the content writes itself. I have no desire for it. It's just because we went through such a different journey to parenthood. And so, but that's something also to like embrace. Like, you're fighting so hard for family. You're fighting so hard to be in this role. That's a beautiful thing. And it's okay if you don't fit in a traditional framework. That's what I would say.
All right, thank you for answering that. I appreciate it. Okay, I have another question. So this is my question. This is not the people's question. We've met before, and I've talked to you a lot. You have something about you where I feel like people just like word vomit and like tell you their whole life stories. And this could be because you used to have a show called Life Story Project where you would literally stop people on the street and ask them to tell you their life story, and they did. And so you probably, I don't know, there's just something about you where people feel comfortable. And so I'm sure you've heard it all. Is there anything you can share with us, just kind of like off the record, on the record? Don't have to share names, but something that's really impacted you, that stayed with you. Doesn't really, if it's fertility related, great. If it's not and just for relationship related, that's great too. But yeah, tell us something. Give us some.
Oh, that's a fun question. Yeah, and what's so funny, Marissa, you've told me. Sorry.
Okay, it's all good. We're live.
Well, here.
It's all good.
Anyway, I think, it's funny because you had told me when we met about your husband watched the show. It used to be on Oprah Canada, and that was such a fun connection because I hadn't thought about the show. It's it was already like 10 years ago, but I think that one of the pieces through my work as a journalist, because I was really a relationship journalist my whole career. I once interviewed a 90-something-year-old woman, and I said, "What's your one tip? Like, if you just had to impart one thing," and she said, "The most important thing you can offer in a relationship is your presence." Mm-hmm. And people in our generation get so distracted by like ego, money, fame, status. It's all the best thing you can offer is presence. So I've kept that. I really try to embrace. I don't always embrace it, like by no means, but when I do remember it, it helps me be a better partner, a better parent, all of that.
That's so good. I love that.
I was like, Carol, we need you on a media tour. She was so good.
That is so good. By the way, we will definitely put notes in all the show notes. We will plug the book. We want to plug the book, like the book and the show as well. So anything we're talking about, just go to the show notes. If you're listening after the live, we'll definitely plug all of those things. So you can find all these amazing resources. So good. We might even plug a couple TV shows we mentioned because they're great. Okay, we're going to move.
Yeah, I have a Pregnantish podcast.
Okay, yes.
It's thank you so much, though. That's really sweet. That's where we've been live for 4 years, and we've covered so many relationship topics.
Good.
So,
okay. Yes, that would be awesome for sure.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Sounds good. We're going to move into the fun section of this episode, talking about the crazy. Speaking of stories, we got one there. We're going to talk about more. So. We have to ask you, what are some of the wildest, funniest, or most unexpected or embarrassing stories that you've heard about intimacy during fertility struggles? I know we've shared a few on our podcast because we always ask this, what's the most embarrassing moment through your journey? Like when we interview our storytellers. And we've heard some really funny ones about like meeting in a hotel room because the partner was actually working away from home. And so then they had to like stealthy sneak into the work conference and have sex because it was that night, the ovulation. Anyways, so we want to hear from you. What are some good stories?
Oh, I've heard so many too. I mean, I told you mine, but Samantha Bush has been on my podcast a few times. She's the wife of race car driver Kyle Busch. She was telling us the story of just how she acted every time her ovulation stick showed she's ovulating. Like she was like, "Get the F in here." She was like, I was just unhinged with the pressure to like get it on that minute. So that was a funny story to me. I think like when I think about all the places, that we did shots or that. Well, my friend Josh had a very funny experience. He did IVF, I want to say 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And it was like an old school clinic, I guess. They actually would pick the video content. I mean, now people do it on their phone. They would pick really raunchy, really like young women that were like, he was like, who do you think I am? Like, what is this? So that always kind of made me laugh, just that we're like, Josh, that's who they think you are. I don't know. I think in general, that idea that when we did IUIs of like transporting sperm on a New York subway, which is disgusting.
Yeah, in your armpit, or like, you gotta keep it warm. Don't forget.
Exactly. Like those moments make me laugh and kind of make me cringe.
They're like cringy funny.
Very cringy. Doing not shots, in a bathroom at my friend's like 35th birthday party on the Lower East Side. Well, people are like banging on the door that they want to get in, and I'm like, I'm doing shots, and then I were like, let's speed this up. So there's just so many of those moments where you're just doing your injections in crazy places, you're holding sperm vials in crazy places, you're having sex at crazy times, and then you just have to laugh about it because it's so, like, no one would understand unless they're in it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like what you said before, that like you laugh about it. You might not laugh about it while it's happening.
Right.
Maybe it'll take some time, but when you think back and think, oh my God, like I did all these things, or like I did shots in like a dirty concert hall bathroom where like I had literally everything was disgusting, but I had my little alcohol wipes, so that doesn't matter. Like I'm sanitizing my spot while there's like unimaginable things all over the walls and the sinks and everything. So you might not laugh about it now, but those are definitely stories that you might look back to and think, holy crap, like look at all these things that I've done.
Just to bring life, like to have a baby. Look at all I've done. I mean, can we take a moment to shine a spotlight on you guys, on me, on the community who does everything for the chance to love a human? How beautiful that is. Like, it's something, instead of shame, what if we embraced a perspective of that these are the parents we want in the world, the people who work hard and fight for families. Like, these are who we want raising the next generation.
Oh, that is so good. I love that so much.
What a beautiful perspective to, like, just instead of thinking of course there's heartbreak, there's pain, but we're putting so much love into loving another human being. Like, we don't stop, right? We don't stop until we have to stop. We just keep going and going and going and put ourselves through all of this because we just want to love someone else.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So good.
I love that.
True.
Are we going to talk about awkward moments, Marissa?
Yeah. Any awkward moments? Do you give us, so you already told us the sex story about your doctor saying, are you sure you did it? But I'm sure you have another one, or somebody told you an awkward.
Oh, I mean, if you met me, like, every day is an awkward moment at some point. But I think, I think in general, awkward moments, like when I think about the journey, well, awkward. They weren't always funny, awkward. Let me say that. It was awkward, and I know you know this through the surrogacy lens, when people didn't understand surrogacy, which many don't. And it was like, I was in a hospital in New Jersey, and every time I had an appointment with my cousin who was carrying my daughter, they called her the mom, and they would say to me, we have to check with the mom if, like, you can be in the room. And she was great. Elena was great, my cousin, because she would correct them and I would correct them. So that was always a bit awkward. It was awkward. By the way, the hospital where we later found out they had never had a surrogacy birth, or that they knew of.
Wow.
What started as this totally awkward, actually painfully awkward, like painful, like dagger in my heart. I mean, you're 7 or 8. I've created this beautiful embryo that my cousin is growing, and you're just cutting me out. Like, really? what was so hard turned into a teaching moment. And that happens on this journey through awkward moments where I educated them on what does it mean for gestational surrogate and IP. And so that was, and they ended up being really wonderful when my daughter was born. But it was awkward. It was also awkward. I mean, I could think of so many moments where people ask me awkward questions, which we've all had. Yeah, like I was diagnosed with endo, like I said, around 14. So I got married telling my husband it would probably take us time to have a baby. I never realized it would take like 18 treatments, 8 years, another uterus. Okay, fine. I didn't know that, but
yeah.
But I did know I probably had a fertility issue, which in a way I was lucky to know because many people don't know. And that was awkward to explain when I was dating, because I would tell, I just have coming up on my podcast, Lexi Young, who was on the show The Bachelor, who was like the first person on the franchise, I think, to publicly talk about endometriosis. And it was a story plot line on her last season, right?
I loved that.
Oh, she's amazing. But the point is, like, we all went through it. Any of us who had that diagnosis who were dating, at what point do you tell your date? That's awkward.
Yeah.
Like, I know I might not be able to easily become a mom. I told my husband that pretty early, and he was like, we're young. Like, I'm not worried. In year 5, I apologized. I'm like, I feel, I know it's not my fault. It's a medical issue, but like, you signed up for this, and I'm so sorry. Like you have these crazy moments. I don't know if you guys ever had this. At one time we got a bad result, and I said, you should leave me for a fertile woman. And my husband,
we had one of those. Yeah. Ours was reverse. Yeah. But yes, you do. You are faced with questions that couples that don't have infertility never ever have to be faced with, and situations and questions, and it's so much to navigate together.
So let me ask you this question, as for the listeners out there who maybe are not in a relationship right now, but know that they might have male factor, or they might have something that can, cause some issues down the line when they're trying to carry. How does one go about that when they're dating? Like, do you spill it on the first date, or do you wait? Like, what would your advice be to someone navigating that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's hard. I wouldn't necessarily share it on the first date unless you're really going deep into future family plans, which can come up, but like first date should be more just light and introductory whenever possible. I do think when conversations naturally go to the future, it's a good organic point to say, if this is your story, like I do want kids, and I do know I have this diagnosis. It's a medical diagnosis. That's a teaching moment.
Yes.
Medical
100%.
I have male factor. I have diminished ovarian reserve. I have endo, whatever. Like that can come up when you organically start talking about the future. That's probably not on date 1 anyway. It might be date 3 or 6. Like it might not be as long away as you imagined. So I think we're always kind of navigating how much to share, how soon to share it. I believe if you're authentic, that's the best, then, and if you don't have someone who can receive it, it's great news. You don't, that's not your match. Like it's great news because you weeded out someone early enough, who couldn't handle it. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. It's not easy. You need to be strong to handle it. And we know that we're all strong. Like the fact that we do this for years and years and years. And like, if you can't get into it, then get out, because we don't have time for this. Right. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Marissa shares on our podcast about her relationship just starting like the day she got her cancer diagnosis, and it's the cutest story ever. Go listen on our. It's such a good.
I tried to break up with my now husband. I'm like, I have cancer and I'm probably going to be infertile, and so I'm breaking up with you. And he's like, oh, relax. Together, I'm like, we haven't even been dating for that long. You sure you want to take this on? And he was like, yeah, no problem. When's the next appointment? And so, I thought, okay, well, maybe he's not that bad of a guy. Let's
yeah, weeds out. It actually also weeds in. That's not an expression. It attracts.
It is now.
It weeds in the quality. Yeah, use that. That's a great Andreaism.
I know. I was like, we got a new Andreaism. That's amazing.
But it attracts like those good eggs. Get it? It attracts the good ones too, who are just like there for the right reasons. That sounds like The Bachelor, right? Yeah.
No, it's true though. It's definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Oh wow, this has been such a great conversation. I love this. I want to make a note if anybody's listening and they want to share embarrassing or a story. I know we went a little off track there, but anybody want to share in the comments, please do share your awkward stories for us. Just as we kind of go into wrapping up this episode. It's been so nice getting to know you, Andrea. I cannot believe we've been talking for an hour. I feel like we just started and it's already at the end. And so I'm slightly disappointed, but also I know we're going to see each other again. I think, where can we find you? Where can we learn more about Pregnantish?
Sure. Well, we own the trademark Pregnantish, so pretty much anything that says Pregnantish is us. So that's an easy way to find us online or the podcast. We have a Substack. We publish content. Content's the only thing we do, but we're a media company. So videos, live events, podcast, we're really omni-channel in the way we hopefully bring this community together with education and content and real talk about fertility is our tagline. So I love the real talk you guys help drive tonight. And and please follow, keep in touch. Nothing is off limits. Our community talks about everything. So
yeah, actually you just had an event here in Toronto not too long ago, and it was so nice. It was like egg preservation and preserving fertility, but it was all bachelor themed, or bachelorette themed, which was really nice. And you were giving out roses. You were asking.
I really like The Bachelor. I don't know. I just said, will you learn about your fertility?
But it's so nice.
That's so cute.
I find a lot of fertility events that take place in doctors' offices. You just don't want to go to the same place where you're at all the time. And I think what Pregnantish does really well is that they take you out of that mindset, right? And they put you somewhere else. And then they're like, let's talk about this crappy situation, but in a nice environment. And you don't have to always feel like you're in a medical state kind of thing. So always look for that stuff because you always have stuff going on.
Yeah. And I think in terms of the Canadian audience, I think we'll be in Vancouver, April 19th. We're doing our LA event coming up. You can follow along online. We try to socially broadcast parts if you can't be there for the good education and community moment. But yeah, it's so fun to see you guys when we see each other live and then through this. This has been great.
Thank you so much. I can't wait for the next event. It's going to be good. For everybody watching, listening later, if you found this conversation helpful, please do follow us. Share the episode with your friends. Join us next time on Fertility Village Live. We're going to be here again next Wednesday. We are moving into a whole new month, so just watch our social channels and you'll see some advertising. I also want to make a note that you can sign up for our support groups starting next week. They will be live for March. And we also have a really big announcement happening on March 1st, which is this Saturday. Our tickets are going live for the Fertility Party Gala, which is our big fundraiser for Oasis. So we are so pumped to get those tickets out there. You're going to want to be there. You're going to want to wear your hat. So definitely run to our website. The first 25 tickets that get sold are getting a gift valued over $100 when you arrive at the tea. So that's all for me. Marissa is going to tell us about next week, and then we're going to sign off.
Yes. Okay. So don't forget to follow us on social media. Like Erin just said, follow Pregnantish as well if you haven't followed them yet, which would be shocking, by the way. But do that and keep engaging with our posts. Tell us what you want to see so we can keep making these live shows amazing. Next week, we're actually going live with Mary Wong, who is from Alive Holistic Healthcare Clinic. It's going to be a very interesting episode because I will be there getting a live acupuncture session while the live show is going on. So if anybody knows anything about me, they know I have a phobia to needles, and acupuncture was a big no-no until I started acupuncture at Alive. And so come watch me get stuck with a bunch of acupuncture needles while I ask.
It's going to be great. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's going to be great.
And Mary's amazing. She's just the best. It's going to be so good. The whole month is focused on eggs, embryos, and endometriosis because it's all the E's and it's Endometriosis Awareness Month. So we're going to have all those focuses on our lives for the next 4 weeks. So we can't wait to see y'all then. Tune in next time.
Yes.
Thanks, Andrea.
Remember, wherever you are in your journey, you're never alone. Until next time, welcome to the village.
Woo. Bye, everyone.